2 years had passed since the first Cathara refugees arrived on human worlds. Major Rick Hayes stood in the briefing room of the military base on Haven's Edge, looking at the most unusual unit he had ever commanded. 12 human soldiers sat, alongside 12 Cathara partners, preparing for their first real combat mission together. The partnership program had started small, with just a few volunteers from both species. Now it was expanding rapidly as word spread about the remarkable results. Humans and Cathara working together could accomplish things that neither group could do alone. Sergeant Nina Rodriguez checked her equipment one final time. On her shoulder sat Tal, her Cathara partner for the past 8 months. He was larger than most of his kind, having grown strong on human food and exercise. His whiskers moved constantly, picking up signals that human sensors couldn't detect. 3 ships coming in fast, Tal whispered directly into Nina's ear. His voice was so quiet that even the person next to her couldn't hear it. They use stealth technology, but I feel their engines. Nina spoke into her radio without moving her lips. Incoming hostiles bearing 27 Mark IV, 3 ships with cloaking devices. Captain Joe Miller's voice crackled back through the communication system. Confirmed. Sensors show nothing, but we trust your intelligence. All units prepare for contact. The Dominion had been testing human defenses for months, sending small groups of raiders to probe for weaknesses. They expected to find colonies weakened by the burden of caring for useless refugees. Instead, they kept running into resistance that seemed to predict their every move. Today's raid was supposed to be different. General Thox had sent his best stealth fighters to hit the main settlement on Haven's Edge. The plan was simple: destroy the colony's power station and communication array, then withdraw before human reinforcements could arrive. The first Dominion ship dropped out of cloak just above the settlement, its weapons charging for the attack. But instead of finding helpless civilians, it faced defensive positions that were already locked onto its exact location. Human soldiers opened fire with deadly accuracy, while their Cathara partners provided targeting information that made every shot count. The Dominion pilot tried to evade, but Nina and Tal were already tracking his next move before he made it. He will turn left and dive, Tal said calmly. Engines hot, pilot scared. Nina adjusted her aim and fired at empty space. A second later, the Dominion fighter flew directly into her weapons fire. The ship exploded in a ball of flame and crashed into the forest outside the settlement. The second and third Dominion ships tried to coordinate their attack, but they faced something they had never encountered before. The human defenders moved like parts of a single organism, each soldier knowing exactly what the others were going to do. Corporal Mike Chen crouched behind a barrier with his partner Zara perched on his back. She was one of the younger Cathara, barely into adulthood, but her abilities had grown remarkably under human training. Her small hands worked quickly on a portable computer, hacking into the Dominion ship's communication systems. Their leader is angry, Zara reported, her large eyes focused on the data flowing across her screen. He wants to retreat, but the others push him to continue fighting. Mike relayed this information to his squad leader, who passed it up the chain of command. Within minutes, every human defender knew the enemy was divided and losing confidence. The battle became a masterpiece of coordination. Human weapons provided firepower, while Cathara partners offered intelligence, electronic warfare support, and tactical awareness that turned individual fighters into a perfectly synchronized unit. Staff Sergeant Carl Thompson had partnered with Rex, a Cathara who had lost his entire family in the original raids on their homeworld. Rex had been quiet and withdrawn when he first arrived, but months of training with Carl had awakened something fierce inside him. Enemy soldiers coming through the east entrance, Rex reported, his whiskers detecting their movement through the building's ventilation system. 12 soldiers carrying heavy weapons, very confident. Carl smiled grimly. Let's teach them about confidence. They moved through the settlement's corridors like ghosts, Rex guiding them through paths that avoided enemy detection. When they finally encountered the Dominion soldiers, the aliens found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to know their exact positions and intentions. The firefight was brief and one-sided. Human training combined with Cathara intuition created a tactical advantage that the Dominion troops couldn't counter. Within minutes, all 12 enemy soldiers were either dead or surrendering. Dr. Helen Park watched the battle from the command center, recording everything for later analysis. She had been studying the human-Kythera bond for over a year, and what she saw today confirmed her theories. The partnership created a hybrid consciousness that retained individual identity while sharing tactical awareness, emotional state, and sensory input. "It's like they're becoming a new kind of being," she told Commander Steve Watson as they observed the coordinated movements of the bonded pairs. "Neither fully human nor fully Kythera, but something better than either could be alone." The most remarkable change was in the Kythera themselves. Years of being called weak and worthless had created deep psychological scars. But partnership with humans had awakened their natural courage and fighting spirit. Young Pip, now a trained combat specialist, moved through the battlefield with his partner Jake Foster. Together they cleared enemy positions with efficiency that amazed veteran soldiers. Pip's small size allowed him to access areas that humans couldn't reach, while his enhanced senses provided Jake with information that made them nearly unstoppable. "I never thought I could be strong," Pip told Jake during a brief pause in the fighting. "My people always said we were meant to be weak." Jake reloaded his weapon and smiled at his partner. "Strength isn't about size or aggression. It's about protecting the people you care about. You've got more strength than most beings twice your size." The battle ended with complete human victory. All 3 Dominion ships were destroyed or captured, and their ground forces were eliminated with minimal human casualties. But more importantly, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The Kythera were no longer refugees seeking protection. They had become partners in humanity's defense, contributing skills and abilities that made their combined forces stronger than anyone had imagined possible. General Thax received the battle reports with growing confusion and anger. His best fighters had been defeated by what should have been an easy target. The humans were supposed to be weakened by their burden of caring for useless aliens. Instead, they seemed to be getting stronger. Back on Haven's Edge, Major Hayes debriefed his mixed unit. The humans and Kythera sat together, no longer separated by species but united by shared experience and mutual respect. "Outstanding work, everyone," Hayes told them. "You've proven that cooperation can achieve what force alone never could." Elder Corrin, now serving as an advisor to the human military, watched the young warriors with pride. His people had found their purpose not by abandoning their nature, but by combining their natural gifts with human determination and training. The galaxy was about to learn that the weakest species could become the strongest when given the chance to grow. 6 months had passed since the transport ships brought the Kythera refugees to New Terra, the largest human colony in the Outer Rim. Colonel Amy Foster walked through the Integration Center early in the morning, watching the daily activities, with growing amazement. What she saw defied everything the Galactic Council had told them about these supposedly worthless creatures. In the main courtyard, human children played games with young Kythera, their laughter mixing together in the warm air. The small aliens no longer cowered in fear. Their fur had grown back thick and shiny, and their large eyes sparkled with curiosity instead of terror. They moved with grace and confidence that surprised everyone who met them. Amy stopped at a window overlooking the medical wing. Inside, she could see Dr. Kate Sullivan working with Pip, a teenage Kythera who had arrived as one of the most frightened refugees. Now he sat calmly at a desk, solving complex math problems on a computer screen. His small fingers moved quickly across the keys, and his whiskers twitched as he concentrated. "The tests show remarkable progress," Dr. Sullivan told her colleague, Dr. Sam Peters, as they watched Pip work. "His learning speed has increased by over 300% since he arrived. We were told the Kythera had limited intelligence, but that appears to be completely wrong." Dr. Peters nodded, making notes on his data pad. "It seems like fear and stress were blocking their natural abilities. Once they felt safe and supported, their true potential began to show." Down in the workshop area, mechanic Tony Clark struggled with a broken plasma conduit that had been giving him trouble for days. The power coupling kept failing, but he couldn't find the source of the problem. His tools showed normal readings, and the visual inspection revealed nothing wrong. Zek, a middle-aged Kithara who often watched the humans work, approached slowly. Over the past months, he had grown comfortable around Tony, though he still hesitated to speak up. His whiskers twitched as he came closer to the broken equipment. "What is it, Zek?" Tony asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You look like you want to say something." Zek pointed one small finger at a section of the conduit that looked perfectly normal. "There, small crack, very small. Makes bad vibration." Tony looked where Zek pointed but saw nothing. He ran his scanner over the area again and got the same normal reading. "I don't see anything wrong there, buddy." Zek moved closer and placed his hand on the conduit. His whiskers moved constantly, picking up tiny vibrations that human senses couldn't detect. "Trust me. Small crack makes big problem." Tony decided to trust his Kithara friend. He used a molecular scanner, the most sensitive tool he had, and focused it on the exact spot Zek had indicated. The results made him stare in shock. There was indeed a hairline fracture, so small that normal equipment couldn't detect it, but it was causing harmonic vibrations that stressed the entire system. "How did you know?" Tony asked in amazement. Zek's whiskers continued to twitch. "Feel the bad vibration. Hear the wrong sound. Kithara always know when things not right." Word of Zek's discovery spread through the colony quickly. Soon, other mechanics and engineers began asking Kithara to help them find problems that their instruments missed. The small aliens could detect energy leaks, structural stress, and equipment malfunctions with accuracy that amazed their human partners. In the agricultural section, Farmer Bill Watson had been struggling with crop yields that were much lower than expected. The soil tests looked good, the weather had been perfect, and he was using the best seeds available. Yet his plants were growing slowly and producing little food. His Kithara neighbor, an elderly female named Nara, often walked through his fields in the evening. She had mentioned that something felt wrong, but Bill hadn't understood what she meant. Finally, he asked her to explain. Nara led him to different sections of his field, her bare feet moving silently through the dirt. At each spot, she would kneel down and place her hands on the soil. "Here, ground is sad," she said softly. "Water runs wrong way. Plants cannot drink properly." Bill looked at the area she indicated. To his eyes, it looked identical to the rest of the field. But when he brought in ground-penetrating radar, he discovered an underground stream that was diverting water away from the plant roots. Following Nara's guidance, he was able to redirect the water flow and dramatically improve his crop yields. The breakthrough that changed everything happened by accident. 8-year-old Lucy Chen was playing with her Kithara friend Mira in the colony's recreation center. They were working on a puzzle that had been set up as a challenge for older children. The puzzle was supposed to be too difficult for anyone under 12 years old. Lucy had been stuck on the same section for an hour when Mira suggested they try something different. "Hold my hand," Mira said softly. "Think together." When their hands touched, something remarkable happened. Lucy suddenly understood connections she hadn't seen before. The puzzle pieces seemed to arrange themselves in her mind, and she could see the solution clearly. Working together, they completed the entire puzzle in less than 10 minutes. Dr. Sullivan heard about the incident and immediately began testing other human Kithara pairs. What she discovered sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The Kithara possessed a form of limited telepathic ability that could be shared with humans through physical contact. Commander Steve Watson called an emergency meeting when he received Dr. Sullivan's report. The implications were staggering. If humans and Kithara could form mental links, it could revolutionize everything from space exploration to military tactics. "We need to be careful," he told his staff. "These people have been hurt enough. Any research must be done with their full consent and participation. They are our partners, not our test subjects." The Kithara, for their part, were amazed by their own abilities. Many had never realized they possessed these talents because they had always been told they were worthless. In the safety of human communities, surrounded by respect and encouragement, they began to discover capabilities they never knew they had. Elder Corin spent his days teaching young humans and Cathara together, sharing the wisdom of his people while learning about human history and culture. The children learned from each other in ways that surprised their teachers, combining human determination with Cathara intuition to solve problems neither group could handle alone. As news of these developments spread through the human colonies, more and more people requested Cathara partners for various projects, but the humans were careful to ensure that every arrangement was voluntary and mutually beneficial. The Cathara were not pets or tools, but equal partners in building a better future. Meanwhile, the wider galaxy remained unaware of these remarkable changes. The Galactic Council still viewed the human-Cathara partnership as an expensive act of charity that would eventually bankrupt the naive humans. The Dominion continued to plan raids on human colonies, expecting the burden of protecting useless refugees to make their enemies easy targets. They had no idea that they were about to face something completely new in galactic history: a partnership between species that made both sides stronger than either could be alone. 5 years had passed since Ambassador Jake Martinez first walked into the Galactic Council chamber with 30 frightened Cathara refugees. Now Admiral Kevin Ross stood on the bridge of the UHS Valiant as it entered the former Dominion capital system, leading the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Beside him stood Grand Tactical Advisor Nyx, a Cathara who had risen through the ranks based on pure strategic brilliance. She was no longer the small, terrified creature that her species had once been. Years of partnership with humans had transformed her into something magnificent. Her sleek black fur gleamed under the bridge lights, and her eyes held the sharp intelligence of a master tactician. Enemy defensive positions confirmed, Nyx reported. Her consciousness linked directly to the fleet's sensor network through quantum communication technology developed by human Cathara research teams. They have fortified the 3 outer moons, but their formations show fear and desperation. Kevin nodded, studying the tactical display. The Dominion's final stronghold was heavily defended, but intelligence reports suggested that morale among their forces was near collapse. 5 years of defeats had broken their confidence in their own superiority. "All ships prepare for final assault," Kevin announced over the fleet communications. "Remember, we fight to liberate, not to destroy. Capture when possible, eliminate only when necessary." Captain Chris Martinez, son of the original ambassador, commanded a strike team that included both human special forces and Cathara, who had evolved far beyond their peaceful origins. His partner was Vera, a second-generation Cathara warrior who had been born in human space and trained from childhood in both combat and diplomacy. "Stealth infiltration successful," Chris reported as his team moved through the outer defenses of Dominion Prime. Vera's electronic warfare capabilities are jamming their communication networks. Vera's small fingers danced across multiple control interfaces simultaneously, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to hack enemy systems faster than their automated defenses could respond. Where the original Cathara refugees had been barely literate, their children had become technological masters who could interface with any computer system in the galaxy. The siege of Dominion Prime lasted only 6 hours, but it would be remembered as the most perfectly executed military operation in galactic history. Human Cathara forces moved through the planet's defenses like water flowing around obstacles, adapting to every challenge with fluid grace. Sergeant Linda Foster led her squad through the capital city's main plaza, her partner Zik scanning for enemy positions with senses that could detect heartbeats through solid walls. The Dominion soldiers who had once terrorized peaceful worlds now cowered in their bunkers, too frightened to emerge and face warriors who seemed to know their every thought. "Surrender broadcast detected," Zik reported, his large ears twitching as he monitored radio frequencies. "General Thox wants to negotiate terms." Linda smiled grimly. After years of brutality against innocent beings, the Dominion's leader was finally ready to admit defeat. "Tell him we'll accept nothing less than complete surrender and the immediate release of all prisoners." In the Dominion Command Center, General Thox stared at the tactical displays showing his forces in complete retreat. His lifetime of military experience had taught him that strength came from fear and domination, but these human Cathara pairs fought with a coordination and purpose that made his best strategies useless. How is this possible? He demanded of his remaining officers. They were supposed to be the weakest beings in the galaxy. We saw them cower in refugee camps. We watched them beg for scraps of food. None of his subordinates could answer. The transformation of the Cathara from victims to warriors defied everything they thought they knew about the natural order of the galaxy. Admiral Ross and Grand Tactical Advisor Nix entered the command center together, followed by a small escort of human Cathara pairs. Thox expected to face vengeful conquerors, but instead found beings who radiated calm confidence and controlled strength. General Thox, Kevin said formally, I accept your surrender on behalf of the Human Cathara Alliance. Your forces will lay down their weapons and submit to war crimes tribunals. The slave labor camps will be dismantled immediately, and all prisoners will be freed. Thox looked at Nix with confusion and anger. You were nothing, he snarled at her. Your people were insects, barely worthy of notice. How did you become this? Nix's response was calm and measured. We became what we always had the potential to be. You saw weakness because you understood only domination. The humans saw possibility because they understood partnership. President Maria Santos addressed the Galactic Council from Earth 3 days later, with Elder Corrin standing beside her as an equal representative of their alliance. The same chamber that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's foolish charity now sat in stunned silence. The war is over, Maria announced to the assembled delegates. The Dominion's military forces have surrendered, and their slave camps have been liberated. We offer the defeated soldiers a chance at rehabilitation and integration into galactic society. Council Prime Vextar, who had mocked the human Cathara partnership 5 years earlier, now struggled to understand what he was seeing. The small, frightened creatures he remembered had been replaced by confident beings who carried themselves with quiet dignity and unmistakable strength. How do you propose to govern the former Dominion territories? Vexitar asked carefully. Elder, Corrin stepped forward to answer. The same way we have built our alliance, through cooperation, mutual respect, and the understanding that every being has value when given the chance to grow. Young Cathara now served as ambassadors throughout the galaxy, their natural empathy making them incredibly effective at resolving conflicts between different species. Veterans like Rex, who had survived the original refugee camps, trained new generations of warriors from multiple species, teaching them that strength and compassion were not opposing forces. The transformation was complete, but not in the way anyone had expected. The Cathara had not become human weapons or abandoned their peaceful nature. Instead, they had found their true purpose as partners in building a better galaxy. Dr. Alex Turner's final research report documented the remarkable evolution of both species. Humans had gained enhanced intuition and sensory awareness through their bonds, while Cathara had developed increased confidence, strategic thinking, and physical capabilities. But more importantly, both groups had learned that cooperation could achieve what domination never could. Admiral Ross and Grand Tactical Advisor Nix planned humanity's expansion into unexplored sectors, carrying with them the lessons learned from 5 years of partnership. They had proven that the greatest strength came not from conquering the weak, but from helping them discover their own power. The Human Cathara Alliance continued to grow, accepting new refugee species and helping them find their place in an increasingly diverse confederation. What had started as an act of compassion had become the foundation of a new galactic order, built on partnership rather than fear. As Admiral Ross looked out at the stars from his command ship, he reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy would never again dismiss a species as worthless. The humans and their Cathara partners had proven that with the right support and respect, any being could exceed even their own expectations. The weakest had become the strongest, not through abandoning their nature, but by fulfilling their true potential. And the galaxy was better for it. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast space. Ambassador Jake Martinez walked into the room with steady steps, his black uniform crisp and clean. Behind him came Captain Lisa Rodriguez, her hand resting on her weapon. They had traveled across 3 star systems to reach this moment. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. Alien delegates sat in floating chairs arranged in circles around the center floor. The Vorthon warriors towered above everyone else, their thick armor gleaming under the bright lights. Their 6 arms moved constantly as they talked in their clicking language. The Zephyrians looked like walking crystals, their bodies catching and throwing back rainbow colors. The nebulites appeared as clouds of gas held together by energy fields, shifting and moving like living smoke. All eyes turned to the small group huddled behind Jake and Lisa. 30 Kythera refugees pressed close together, their large eyes darting around the room in fear. They were small creatures barely reaching Jake's waist. Their fur was dirty and patched from months in refugee camps. Most of them trembled as they looked up at the giant aliens who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Council Prime Vextar rose from his seat, his massive form casting a shadow over the humans. His voice boomed across the chamber when he spoke. "So these are the famous humans we keep hearing about. You travel far from your tiny corner of space to waste our time with this foolish request." Jake stepped forward, his shoulders straight. "We come to offer sanctuary to the Kythera people. Their homeworld was destroyed in the recent raids. They need somewhere safe to live." Laughter filled the chamber. The sound bounced off the walls like thunder. General Thox of the Dominion forces stood up, his red eyes glowing with cruel amusement. "The Kythera are the weakest beings in the galaxy. They have no strength, no weapons, no useful skills. They exist only to serve their betters." One of the Kythera children, a small female with patches of missing fur, whimpered and hid behind her mother. The mother wrapped her thin arms around the child, her own body shaking with fear. Captain Rodriguez felt anger rise in her chest but kept her face calm. "Every living being deserves a chance at freedom and safety. We have room on our worlds for these people." People? A Zephyrian delegate's crystal body flashed bright blue with what humans had learned meant mockery. "They are barely animals. They eat plants, run from any conflict, and produce nothing of value. Most civilizations use them for simple labor because they are too weak to resist." Dr. Ben Thompson stepped forward, carrying a datapad in his hands. He was a thin man with kind eyes who had spent months studying the Kythera in the refugee camps. "Our research shows they have remarkable abilities that have been overlooked. Their brain structure is unique, and their social bonds are incredibly strong." "Weak bonds between weak creatures," growled a Vorthon commander. "Strength comes from conquest and domination. These soft beings understand only how to cower and submit." Jake looked around the room at the faces of the alien delegates. Most showed disgust or boredom. A few seemed amused by what they saw as human foolishness. None showed any sympathy for the frightened refugees. "The Kythera homeworld held over 50 million beings," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the large space. "The Dominion raids killed most of them. These 30 are all that remain of an entire civilization." General Thox's laugh was like breaking glass. "They died because they were too weak to defend themselves. The strong survive, the weak perish. This is the natural order of the galaxy." An old Kythera male stepped forward on unsteady legs. His name was Elder Corin, and he had been the leader of his people before the attacks came. His voice was soft, barely heard above the noise in the chamber. "We never sought to harm anyone. We lived in peace, growing food and raising our children. We asked for nothing but to be left alone. And look where peace brought you," Thox replied. "Your world burns, your people are scattered, and you beg these young humans to save what little remains. Perhaps you should have learned to fight instead of hiding behind your plants and prayers." The words hit Elder Corin like physical blows. His shoulders sagged and tears began to fall from his large eyes. Several other Kythera began to cry as well, their soft voices filling the chamber with sounds of grief. Lisa Rodriguez had heard enough. "We didn't come here to debate the worth of living beings. We came to inform the Council that humanity will provide sanctuary to any Kythera who wishes it. We request only that you register our intent and respect our sovereignty in this matter." Vextar's 6 arms waved in dismissal. "Take them if you wish. We see no profit in preventing humans from burdening themselves with galactic refuse, but do not expect aid when these creatures drain your resources and give nothing in return. The vote was quick and clearly just a formality. Most delegates didn't even bother to participate. Those who did vote seemed more interested in getting the humans out of their chamber than in the fate of the Cathara. As the session ended, Jake and Lisa gathered their small group of refugees. The Kithara moved slowly, still overwhelmed by the size and noise of the council chamber. Many had never seen aliens other than the Dominion soldiers who had destroyed their world. "Where will we go?" asked a young Kithara female named Mira. Her voice was barely a whisper. Lisa knelt down to look into her eyes. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can heal and build new lives. Somewhere no one will hurt you again." Elder Corin looked up at the human captain with wonder. "Why do you help us? Your own people called us worthless. We have nothing to offer you." Jake placed a gentle hand on the old Cathara's shoulder. "Every being has worth. Every life matters. You'll see." As they walked toward the transport ships that would carry them to human space, none of them could imagine how much their lives were about to change. The galaxy had written off the Kithara as evolutionary failures. The Council saw them as burden the humans would soon regret taking on. They were all about to discover just how wrong they could be. 3 years after the first Kithara refugees had arrived, the galaxy began to notice something strange happening in human space. Reports reached the Galactic Council about unusual military victories and rapid expansion of human territory. What the alien governments didn't understand was that humanity had evolved beyond simple partnership into something entirely new. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Davis commanded Kepler Station when the largest Dominion fleet ever assembled arrived at the system's edge. General Thox had grown tired of losing battles to what he still believed were weak humans protecting useless creatures. This time, he brought 500 warships and 50,000 soldiers to crush human expansion once and for all. "Sir, they're demanding our immediate surrender," reported Communications Officer Beth Williams from her station on the command deck. "General Thox says he'll give us 1 hour to evacuate all civilians before he destroys the station." Frank looked at the tactical display showing the massive enemy fleet. Kepler Station held only 2,000 people, including 500 human Kithara bonded pairs who formed the core of its defense force. By any normal calculation, they were hopelessly outnumbered. "Send a reply," Frank told Beth. "Tell General Thox that Kepler Station stands ready to defend itself. If he wants this station, he'll have to take it." In the lower levels of the station, Ghost Company prepared for battle. These 50 human Kithara pairs had trained together for 2 years, developing techniques that pushed the boundaries of what both species thought possible. They moved through the station's corridors like living shadows, each pair functioning as a single deadly unit. Corporal Mike Chen checked his equipment one final time, while his partner Zara ran diagnostic tests on the station's defense systems. She had grown considerably since their first days together, both in size and confidence. Her fur was now thick and dark, and her eyes held the steady gaze of a seasoned warrior.
"Enemy troops will come through docking bays 7, 12, and 15, Zara reported, her consciousness linked with the station's sensors through her portable computer. "They plan to split our forces and attack the reactor core from 3
directions." Mike nodded and relayed the information to his squad leader. Within minutes, every defender on the station knew exactly where the enemy would strike and how to counter their tactics. The first wave of Dominion troops hit the station like a hammer blow. Thousands of heavily armed soldiers poured through the breaches, expecting to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Instead, they found themselves walking into carefully prepared traps. Sergeant Paul Martinez and his partner Kix had positioned themselves in the main corridor leading to Docking Bay 7. As Dominion soldiers advanced in formation, Kix used his enhanced hearing to track their exact positions even through the station's metal walls. 20 soldiers in the next section, Kix whispered. "Their leader is nervous. He expects heavy resistance here." Paul activated a series of force field barriers that channeled the enemy troops into a narrow killing zone. As they advanced, he and Kix worked together with deadly precision. Paul provided covering fire while Kix used his small size and agility to plant explosive charges in exactly the right positions. The explosion that followed eliminated 15 enemy soldiers and trapped the survivors behind collapsed debris. What should have been a major breakthrough for the Dominion became a disaster that cost them valuable time and troops. Throughout the station, similar scenes played out as human Kythera pairs demonstrated abilities that defied conventional military thinking. The Kythera had grown far beyond their original peaceful nature, but they retained their natural empathy and intelligence. Combined with human weapons training and tactical knowledge, they became something unique in galactic warfare. Private Janet Cooper moved through the station's ventilation system with her partner Nyx, a young Kythera who had been born on human worlds. Unlike the original refugees, Nyx had never known fear or oppression. She had grown up believing she was strong and capable, and her confidence showed in every movement. 3 enemy squads converging on the reactor level, Nyx reported through their mental link. They carry plasma charges, plan to cause overload. Janet and Nyx dropped down into the reactor chamber just as the first Dominion soldiers arrived. The enemy troops expected to find lightly defended machinery. Instead, they faced 2 beings who moved and fought as one entity. Janet's rifle fire forced the enemies into cover, while Nyx scrambled across the ceiling, using handholds that were too small for human or Dominion hands. She dropped behind enemy lines and began sabotaging their equipment with tools designed specifically for Kythera use. The Dominion soldiers found their weapons failing at critical moments, their communications cutting out, and their protective gear malfunctioning. When they tried to retreat, they discovered that Nyx had sealed the entrances behind them. Commander Patricia Wong watched the battle unfold from the central command post, amazed by what she was seeing. The human Kythera pairs weren't just fighting together. They were thinking together. Each partnership created a tactical awareness that seemed almost supernatural to outside observers. "How are they coordinating so perfectly?" asked Lieutenant Dave Rogers, the station's tactical officer. "It's like they can read each other's minds." "In a way they can," Patricia replied, thinking about the research reports she had read. "The bond between them creates a shared consciousness during combat. They're not just partners anymore, they're something new." The battle raged for 6 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Every Dominion assault was detected in advance and countered before it could succeed. Human defenders fought with precision that seemed impossible, while their Kythera partners provided intelligence and support that transformed conventional tactics into art. In the deepest levels of the station, veteran Marine Ron Thompson partnered with Rex to defend the main computer core. Rex had changed dramatically from the broken refugee who had first arrived on human worlds. He was now larger, stronger, and filled with quiet confidence that came from years of successful partnerships. "They're trying to hack our systems," Rex reported, his whiskers twitching as he monitored electronic signals. "But their codes are old, I can block them easily." Ron smiled as he watched his partner work. Rex's small fingers moved across multiple keyboards simultaneously, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to counter enemy cyber attacks faster than any computer system could manage. When the final Dominion assault failed, General Thox found himself facing a reality he couldn't accept. His massive fleet had been held off by a single space station, defended by creatures he still believed were worthless. The reports from his surviving troops spoke of enemies who seemed to predict every move, counter every strategy, and fight with coordination that defied explanation. "Impossible," Thox growled as he reviewed the battle footage. "They're just humans and they're weak pets. How can they be this effective?" But the evidence was undeniable. The human Kythera partnership had created warriors who combined the best qualities of both species while developing entirely new capabilities. The galaxy's weakest beings had become its most formidable fighters, not through abandoning their nature but by fulfilling their true potential. As the Dominion fleet retreated in defeat, the defenders of Kepler Station celebrated their victory. But more importantly, they had proven that cooperation could triumph over aggression, that strength came not from domination, but from mutual respect and shared purpose. The galaxy would never be the same